Okay, welcome to a conversation with Spiral Drive. And I'm John Williams. That's the most awkward way I've ever said that in my life. I'm the owner and operator of whatwasthatradio.com, which is a one-stop shop to discover true modern rock alternative. It's also a community of wuzzers, an arts academy, and a podcast that in this moment splits into two. You see, you've got a conversation with, and a series that is truly just me being galvanized by performers and diving into their souls, trying to discover every little bit of information about them, what leads them to be themselves and create in such a way. At the same time, them being like, who the fudge is this guy that's really into my art? Getting to know each other, making friends. Then there's What Was Short, which is where we being my podcast editor, Mike Battle, one of my best friends, our favorite nugget of 10 minutes and nothing more than that. So it's a quick look into the eye of a performer and then in turn, hopefully inspire someone to go and dive into their working as well. So if you want to just know everything about how Raphael and Spiral Drive situation works, hang with me for the next near 2 hours. Or keep an eye out for that 10-minute and What Was Short coming up in the next few weeks as well. Here's a conversation with Spiral Drive out of Germany.
Hello there.
Hello, Raphael. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, John?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. No, this is great. You're 5 minutes early, man.
Yeah, I mean, why not? So,
let's just get on with it.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to play I was going to watch the music video for Space Train.
Oh, you liked it?
Up. Oh, I love them all, man. I love how quirky and psychedelic your creations are. And from our little chit chat on Instagram last week and sort of throwing this together and you being like, hang on a second, what are we going to talk about? And really, it's just getting to know each other. You don't know me, I don't know you.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that you and your bandmates have produced music that I just adore. I cannot get enough of listening to Spiral Drive.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Makes me really happy to hear.
Yeah. So where are you right now? In your home studio or what's the location?
Yeah, my home studio in Mannheim, Germany. And yeah, that's the place I usually spend the most time at.
Yeah, Liz is saying hello. We've got some people joining us in the chat here. Liz and Steve saying hello to you. And really, I think for me, what do you want to know about me before we start? Let's get some context on each other.
So what about the what was that radio?
Yeah.
What was that radio?
So the really long story short, Raphael, is that I'm originally from England, but I moved to Canada 12 years ago. And I had exhausted all chances and opportunity in trying to get into radio in England when I was a youngster in my early teens up until my early 20s. And then my mum's mother was from Canada here. And when my grandmother passed away 13 years ago, we had a little get together in Toronto. Then I met all this family and all these cousins that I didn't even know existed. And so I backpacked Canada that summer. And then I just fell in love with it. And I thought, you know what, if I can't get in the radio industry in England, I'll move over here and try. And then within a few months, I'd got a job at a modern rock station called The Zone in Victoria on Vancouver Island, which is where I'm based. So right on the West Coast. And I was
Vancouver?
Yeah, near Vancouver. Yeah. So we have to get on a ferry and we go across the water for an hour and a half and then we're in Vancouver almost.
Okay.
It's about a 3-hour trip.
I have a couple of friends who went to Canada and they also loved it. From what I heard so far, it seems to be very interesting.
Yeah.
And in fact, our first drummer, Tillman, who was drumming on our first album, Unity, and on the Space Pirate session, shortly after he went to Canada with a band called Simoya, and they moved to Montreal, I think. And from there, they started touring through the whole North American continent. And yeah, it always seemed very interesting to me. So maybe, hopefully, one day I'll make it there too.
Yeah, I think it would be sweet. It's so big. It's huge. I mean, when you tour Canada, you could have toured through 10, 12 European countries. That's how much time you're putting in.
That's true.
But I worked at the Zone at 9213 for 10 years. And I went from overnights to evenings to the midday show. And right before the pandemic started, I was doing a show called What Was That? And it was an hour show on Sunday nights. It was just a new music exposure hour.
Yeah.
And that's where I first started playing you. And then when the pandemic struck, I just felt like the really long story short, because it's hard to summarize in 20 seconds, but I felt like my passion wasn't being utilized enough in the company. I had been there for 10 years. I wanted more. I wanted more work and more challenges, and I also wanted to really focus on modern rock. If we're a modern rock radio station, I love Nirvana, I love Soundgarden, I love Alice in Chains, but you know that's 30 years old now, and so I wanted to really immerse myself in nothing but this moment. And so what was that? Is a modern rock alternative radio station. Nothing is older than 7 years, but 90% of the playlist is all released within the last 18 months. And I have over 3,000 unique bands that I play, and Spiral Drive are one of them. And
great to hear. Thanks, man.
So that essentially is what Was That is. It's also a podcast, which is we're chitty chatting right now. And then it's also an arts academy. And so everything I earn is split 50-50. And then 50% of what I earn goes into supporting Canadians for getting music lessons and music instruments. And then the other 50%, beyond going to me, of that 50-50 rather, the charity side of it, goes back into the community. So there are people watching us right now who we might have bought groceries for when they lost their job in the pandemic, or they couldn't afford rent, or their pet got ill and needed surgery.
Yeah.
It's not changing the wheel, Raphael, of anything. It's still what the beauty of radio and community can be, but it's just doing it in my own way, just to try and keep evolving and learning all these new skills and building my own station, which feels strange to say when it is just me right now and a few others, but it's step by step. It's been a hell of a 2 years, but
cool.
That's why, you know, I play the shit out of your music. And so I just want to, I want to dissect you, Raphael. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know your bandmates without them necessarily being here in this moment.
Yeah.
And just chat shop.
Sure, man. Sounds great. And it sounds like there's a big portion of dedication and passion involved. So I really like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what drew me to you guys, is that with Spiral Drive, every layer of your creations are so textured, they're so thought out, and they're so particular. And that's why, and pardon me, you know, there are bands where I dive in and find out as much as I can. And every article I can find, every note, every podcast it might be on. But with you guys, I wanted to just allow your music to just impact me and worry about trying to understand the context later on. So I've not done too much research beyond following you on Instagram for a few years. And that's really it. You know, the most we've discussed is when we set this up last week. So where did Spiral Drive begin?
Yeah. So I was originally born in Germany, in Duisburg. It's near Düsseldorf and Cologne. And when I was 9, I moved to Austria with my Austrian mom. And so years later, when I was 21, it was 2012, I moved to Mannheim, Germany to study music here. So I did my bachelor's in electric guitar and my master in music production. And during my studying time in the masters, no, actually also before, I mean, I really dug deep into psychedelic music, you know, like psychedelic rock from the 60s, from the 70s. Way before, I was more of a rock guy, you know. I mean, I'm born 1990, so I'm a kid of the 90s and of the 2000s. So I'm heavily influenced by alternative rock and all that stuff. But at some point, I really dug into psychedelic music, and this was also a main topic in my master's studying. So I wrote my master thesis about psychedelic music and the influence of psychedelic substances on music. And I also had bands before, but actually Spiral Drive started out as my recording project. And I started it all on my own. And one thing I got to experience during these years studying is that you cannot invent a perfect band from scratch. You know, you cannot do some zimzalabim and then you have a perfect band. So I was like, and of course, Kevin Parker was a big inspiration of Tame Impala, because I was thinking, oh man, this guy is like maybe 2 years older than I am, or a couple of years older, and he's doing all of that stuff on his own, and maybe I should try that too. So I did, and luckily I got great musicians joining, and we started playing 2 shows, and we didn't have a goal or a target where this should go, you know. And yeah, so it went step by step. We played 2 shows, and actually we were kind of amazed by the chemistry we had. So we decided to record it. That led to the first recording session in 2017 in November, I think. And we recorded our debut album, Unity. And after that, we were like, oh, that was pretty cool, actually, because we only spent, I think, 3 days in the studio, something like that. And the next step was to do a live session, which was the Space Pirates session. It's on YouTube with the 5 parts, 5 songs. And we did that in January 2018, shortly before the first drummer of ours, Tilman Ruetz, went to Canada. So we had this situation of we have to do this live session and we have to do it on time because Tilly is leaving to Canada soon. So that was one of the last things we did with Tilly. Great guy, by the way, and great musician. And then we were, after Tilly left, we didn't have a drummer, so we had to get another drummer. And then we got Michael Nowatzki, and not to swap with Dirk Nowitzki, the basketball player.
Yeah.
And he joined us, and we also recorded some tracks, and we were on tour with him. We had the release of Unity in, I think, 2019, so it's kind of weird. We actually recorded Unity, the album, before the live session, but we released the live session before, and then we released Unity as an album more than a year later in fall 2019. And during this tour, or afterwards, some events happened, like our very good friend of mine, Andy Haslacher, the keyboard player, synthesizer guy, whatever, multi-instrumentalist. He told us on tour that he is going to become a father of a boy. And Michael Nowatzki, the drummer, he was really doing a lot of hip-hop music production these days. And at some point, we realized that this psych rock thing and touring is probably more a thing for me and the bassist, David Knebels. So after this tour, we had to rearrange again. And that's kind of, the band construct is evolving and changing all the time so that we can continue. But that's also, I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixture out of a band and a collective, Spiral Drive. Yeah.
That's what, when I was trying to find press photos, I was like, shit, these aren't the same people.
No, they're not.
They're just double checking 2 or 3 really great photos. I've got the photo credit because it's so hard to find photographers getting credited these days on the internet. And I was like, hang on. Has he had a haircut? No, that's a different fucking guy. Yeah. It's a different guy. So this is the context that I wasn't going to get until we chatted. I love it. The conversation on Instagram makes so much more sense now when you're like, the others don't really know what they would say right now. Yeah. Because I don't know that you've been through this evolution to get to this stage.
Yeah, David was always a part of it, a big part of it. I also wrote some songs with him, produced some songs with him. And right now, Nicolas Stampf is our drummer at the moment. And we went on tour again in 2020, shortly before Corona hit. And we had a great synth and key player there called Mark Moody. And but it was just for this tour, because it's there are so many great musicians, and it's hard to in this construct, it's hard to find people that really dedicate themselves to this project, because at some point it always seems like it's my project, but I'm really a band guy, and I don't want to be in this role of a band leader and all that stuff, but I have to be in this role. And David is maybe a bit of a shy guy when it comes to interviews, and we also had interviews before together, but yeah, he's mostly like, man, come on, Raphael, you're doing the talking. What should I say? And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to push anyone. So
Exactly, and that's what we said in the Instagram. Is it's got to be comfortable for everyone, and
yeah,
he can watch how we converse and can see if he wants to join in next time, and that's completely fine.
totally.
There's so many. So Raphael of Spiral Drive, there are so many things in that little opening share there. I want to go back firstly to what was the research you did when it came to psychedelic music mastering and going to do your masters in that school. If we go way, way, way back, what first engaged your love as that 90s child in the world of music, and how did that evolve into being, I want to go and study this, I want to not just get a bachelor's, I want to master in it? What was that journey?
Okay, so I have a brother who is 15 years older than me, so he had a big influence on me. Many people in my family are musicians. My father was a musician, a singer. My brother is a musician, and I think they really shared their love for rock music and playing guitar and all that stuff. So I started playing the guitar at age 6 or 7, but then I quit again because I had to read all the notes and I didn't get it. And when I was in the age of 10, I started again. And when I moved to Austria, I was a bit of an outsider child because I was the German kid in Austria. And in Austria, I don't know, it's probably a bit like Canada and USA or like New Zealand and Australia. But in Austria, it's like it's a country which has a lot of tourism and a lot of German tourists. And so they have a lot of stereotypes. So yeah, there's the stereotypical German in Austria. And this made me kind of a bit of an outsider when I was a kid. And music was pretty much very important to me and really helped me with dealing with all this stuff. So when I went home after school, I listened to music and played the guitar and tried to figure out how to play stuff. And there was one moment in particular. I mean, I started off with the first band I was really into was probably Limp Bizkit when I was 9 or 10 or something like that. Watching on TV and was like, wow, what the fuck? Why are they sounding so heavy?
Yeah.
How cool is this guitarist?
Wes Borland is one hell of a guitar player, man.
Yeah, man, totally. And then Linkin Park and all that new metal stuff, obviously. And then it evolved further to pop punk, Blink-182. And when I was 13, there were some events that happened. Like I really got into Guns N' Roses, and because when I was very little, is that actually right to say so? When I was little, yeah, right.
Yeah.
When I was little, I listened to Guns N' Roses a lot through my brother, and at some point, I bought this greatest hits CD of Guns N' Roses because I found it in the store. When it was the time when you went to the store and I want to buy a CD, and then you just listen to CDs.
Remember those days, Raphael?
Yeah. Guns N' Roses. All right, I know them from Welcome to the Jungle. November Rain. Okay, cool. And I listened to that, and I took the CD home with me and put it on a CD player. And at some point, there was this guitar solo of November Rain at the end of the song. And I don't know, somehow this shit really got me. And I was thinking, okay, that's how I want to play guitar. And then I was pretty much a Guns N' Roses fanatic and also Nirvana and all that stuff. And after that came the Chili Peppers. So the crossover type of music. And when I had a band,
sorry, Raphael, did you fall into Dave Navarro or into John Frusciante era?
All the way John Frusciante.
Okay, just checking.
I mean, Dave Navarro was great too, but John Frusciante always felt more torn towards him.
And you don't towards him. I don't seem to have seen you in any of your live performance videos or music videos with a cigarette hanging out your mouth like Slash. You didn't want to go that far with your adoration towards Guns
It's
N'
only
Roses?
because I have to sing most of the
Oh,
time.
okay. Well, I mean, okay, yeah, fair enough.
If we play the other side where we have a long intro, and sometimes I light myself a cigarette up. So nice.
And I've not seen any huge hats yet, but that's okay. You're making your own mark on the musical world.
Already did that though with 16 years old.
Oh yeah.
First band was a Guns N' Roses tribute band.
Oh well, there we go.
Yeah. We had one show, and I had the top hat for the encore.
Sweet. I have to dig up some pictures on that one.
Yeah, and at some point I founded a band where we wrote our own music, and the bass player called Toby, he's actually here at the moment. He lives here for 1 month. He gave me a CD with a lot of alternative rock music like Rage Against the Machine, Incubus, Muse, Radiohead, all that kind of stuff. And I really, really, really dug it. And yeah, that was my musical universe back then. And at some point I experienced my first trip on mushrooms.
Right. Okay. Now, right. So just firstly, before we get into the mushroom trip, did you teach yourself music then? You were alluding to not long ago that maybe you went home and you listened and trained by ear to play along with songs.
Yeah.
That's how you went about it?
So my brother taught me a couple of basics of playing the guitar, like the pentatonic scale, and which was really important looking back now. Yeah, I mean, it's also it's super important if you I don't know, do you play the guitar?
No, I'm absolutely terrible at guitar, but I play drums.
Okay. So you probably know that the pentatonic scale is kind of like the rock and blues rock scale.
Yeah.
So it's a very important fundament. Is that the right word?
Yeah, absolutely. A fundamental, yeah.
And I learned to play. I had lessons in classical guitar for 4 years. And at some point I realized, I probably am supposed to learn all this stuff, but actually I just want to rock. And I was listening to so much rock music, and I taught myself to play rock music, kind of. I was sitting in front of the CD player, and trying to figure out the notes. And yeah, I learned all the stuff from Guns N' Roses by ear when I was 13. Yeah, and also the Blink-182 stuff. Yeah.
Well, it seems then pretty early on then, it was pretty clear that was what you were going to do. That was what you had a natural flair for. So if we dive back into the mushrooms then, so you just throw it out there like that. That was my first adventure with mushrooms. I mean, how old are you? What are your surroundings? I remember the first time that I heard of a friend doing mushrooms was when I was a teenager. And I don't know if he's watching right now. My best friend, Alex, he's otherwise known as Boopa Doopy on here on Twitch. But I remember driving up to London and getting there a few hours after he and Chris had done some mushrooms. And Chris was adamant, and this is pretty macabre, it's pretty dark. He was adamant that the whole upstairs was filled with dead children.
Oh, that sounds harsh.
That was a very harsh trip. I obviously then didn't partake in those mushrooms that night. How does your first trip reflect compared to his?
Yeah, fortunately, my first trip was pretty good, actually. I mean, I had some experiences before that, like not with the classical psychedelics, like with MDMA. And it always had a certain connection for me, like smoking weed and music, and then the MDMA thing and music. And at some point, I had one of my best friends called Joe. We were sharing, we share a lot of experiences from that time, and we met a girl, and that girl at some point was like, hey, I have some shrooms at home. Well, maybe we should just try them. And we're like, okay, let's do it. And then we met up and tried it. And the profound experience for me in the first mushroom trip was how I perceived music. And I was thinking the next day, what the fuck was that yesterday? The way I listened to the music, the way I saw music, it was just blew my mind. And that was the beginning of studying psychedelics, actually. Yeah.
So you're a teenager at this point?
I think 20 years old. Now I'm 31.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
that's in, when all my best friends, we decided to go to Amsterdam when I was around 20, and the mushrooms that we got in Amsterdam weren't very strong. They were they weren't psychedelic. They were more of just getting really stoned, more of a sativa feel, like just a really gentle, like, oh yeah, everything's fun and happy. But for the first hour or so, I found myself just lying, because we were staying right down in the red light district, just lying on the bed. And there's some terrible pictures of me looking like absolute garbage, surrounded by chocolate, lying face down on the bed, looking out the window, just amazed by all the sounds and the colors outside. And of course, everyone thinks that I'm just staring at strippers in a window or something, but I'm just lost in all the hues of the colors and just hearing the people down in the bar below us sounding like almost a herd of elephants, how they're going about cheering. So you're lying down. No, I'm lying down. But what were you, when you say you consumed music and that really affected you? Set that scene for us. Do you remember the songs? Do you remember where you were positioned?
It was actually a Canadian musician, man.
Oh, really?
Super
Who was it?
Dead Mouse.
Oh, okay. That's going to be a trip. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, because at that time I was slowly starting to enjoy electronic music, because before I didn't really had a point for me. And I don't know which album was it. I think For Lack of a Better Name. And the first track with these drums, I mean, it's weird on its own anyways, but I was thinking, what the fuck am I listening to right now, you know? And yeah, that was the first experience. And I started to do these experiences again. And at some point, I don't know which experience is what, maybe the third, the fourth, or the fifth, I don't know. But I took a pretty large dose, and this friend Joe wasn't at my place, but he came to my place because he wanted to look out for me and this girl, because we're doing the shrooms again. And I bought a CD months before from MGMT. And, you know, I was listening, I knew Electric Feel, I knew Time to Pretend, I knew Kids, and that's it. And I bought this CD, Congratulations, the second album, and I was listening to it in the car, and I was like, okay, that's pretty weird music, but doesn't hook me actually. And when I had this very strong trip, my friend Joe put on the CD and gave me the CD in my hands. I was like, okay, and now the cover, everything is moving, and at some point I was like, what? Yeah, no, he put on the music, and I was like, what the fuck are we listening to? That sounds great. And he was like, yeah, that's your CD here, MGMT, congratulations. I was like, really, you know? And then I was looking on the cover, and I was like, whoa, everything makes sense, you know, and congratulations. And
you just needed to go on the trip to come back and realize how fortunate you were. Congratulations for buying this. But that whole record was inspired by drugs. They've shared in interviews.
And I really got that in that moment. I was thinking, okay, maybe this guy really intended to make psychedelic music, and I'm listening to this psychedelic music on my psychedelic experience, and that's pretty crazy. And I also want to do psychedelic music.
Wasn't it the song Electric Feel where they claimed, I don't know if Andrew claimed, that it was inspired by a praying mantis they had at school, and they were watching it high one day, just moving around it, and they were like, burp, 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 burp. They were, making music inspired by that. And some of the songs on that record were inspired by one of their teachers that they bumped into one night when they were on whatever they were on, and they thought he was some sort of alien figure, you know.
I don't really know, but could be. I mean, it's from the album before. I mean, Congratulations is such a psychedelic album. And of course, I didn't get it when I was listening to it in the car, because it's nothing, I don't know, nothing that I didn't have the whole sonical frequency spectrum, you know. And I wasn't into music productions. I didn't know that much about music production back then. And yeah. But at some point, it really started the flame of this interest in psychedelic music and psychedelics. And then, of course, you start doing research, and then, of course, fuck yeah, the Beatles, man. Fuck yeah, the Beatles. My father was a huge Beatles fan, and I was listening to Beatles also when I was a kid a lot. But at that point, I was really interested into the Beatles. Okay, so these guys also had these kind of experiences, and then you start to get, okay, the Doors, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, and it goes on and on. And yeah.
Big time. I just want to say hello to some of the people in chat. Liz Walker saying, wow, Masters in Psychedelic Music, so cool. Josiah saying hello. Trucker
hello
Steve saying, alternative name for What Was That Radio could be What the Fuck Am I Listening To Radio? Yeah, Zoom, good to see you. Jody, hello. Silent but Deadly saying, oh my God, dead children upstairs, good grief. Yeah, I suppose what I could have said before that mushroom story is I'm going to let you know about someone seeing dead things, but I don't know if anyone's seen Sixth Sense. Bruce Willis is fine. But Raphael, so all that is such awesome context behind who you are and how you go about making music. I am very intrigued by when you were saying 15 minutes ago that you don't necessarily want to be viewed as a band leader. So what do you want to be viewed as? And if you're the one that in this moment so far has been the dominant songwriting force, does that allude to you're writing the lyrics, you're writing everyone's parts for them? What do you present to the players that join you to perform live or in the studio? And therefore, what is your role back then? And then what would you like your role to be moving forward?
Yeah. So on the first album, I had the song ideas I had. I mean, I was studying music production, so I really did some solid pre-productions, and I composed the drum parts, I played the bass parts, I played the synthesizers, I played the guitars, I wrote the lyrics, I sang it. So I actually did mostly everything, but I had a great band which really gave it. Maybe we did some changes in the arrangements, but the most of the stuff came from me. And until we recorded the second album, Visions in Bloom, which was last year in February, of course, I collected a lot of ideas. I did a lot of pre-productions, and sometimes I did them on my own. Sometimes David joined me to write and record and produce with me. And yeah, so there are a couple of songs that I wrote with David. I also had a huge part of the album is Manuel Renner, one of my best friends. He is also a music producer, a really great music producer, rock music producer. And he recorded the album when I was playing, obviously. And I produced and mixed and mastered the whole album together with him. And he did the same thing with Unity and the live session. So he's always the engineer recording. Space Pirate session was mixed by him. Unity was mixed by me and him, myself and him. And also Visions in Bloom we did together. So he's a huge factor in all that stuff. And the thing is, I know that I'm a German potato, kind of, and but at some point I never really felt attracted by German music. I was always influenced by music from England, USA, Canada, whatever, English music. And so for me, it's really important that I really give my best to express myself in the English language. And it's hard work because at some point, there's so many people, like saying, why are you doing this in English? Why don't you write songs in German? It's way more authentic. But in my reality, the English language has always sounded better to me. So I was always very interested in the English language. And it's harder to speak than to write a song. And at some point, I always get my lyrics checked by natives and everything, because I really want to make sure that it's not just some bullshit, that I'm writing. Really want to make sure that these thoughts I have or these emotions I have, I really try to canalize them with a decent English. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, Raphael, you speak better than half the fucking people I know.
Oh, thanks a lot. That's a great compliment.
Very eloquently. You've got a very good, you have such a broad range of your use of noun and adjectives. Like this is not This is not your first few weeks in speaking English. You sound like you've been doing it for most of your life. You speak very, very well, very fluidly.
Thank you very much.
And it shines through in the music as well. And this is what I love about conversing with people and learning about their techniques, their history, how they've come to this point.
Yeah.
Is that can you correct me? And how do I pronounce the producer's name again? Nikas? No, what?
Raphael Nikas, that's my name.
Oh, sorry, I've highlighted you. It was you saying Manuel Renner. You produced it with
Manuel Renner, yeah.
Yeah, you can tell that you two have worked together throughout the live recording, the EP, and the singles.
We also recorded some other bands and projects. For example, Mother's Cake. It's a great band. I'm also a part of Mother's Cake at the moment because we produced the last album, and now I'm the fourth guy in that band too. So great band. I love them. Also had a huge influence on me.
I adore them too. Let's get to Mother's Cake. I want to get the second part to my question potentially answered, which is, what do you view yourself as now? If you don't want to be a band leader, 2022 moving forward, what is Raphael's role in Spiral Drive?
I mean, at some point, I am the band leader. I mean, I don't like the role, but I have to do that because if I'm not working on Spiral Drive, no one will. No one does. So it's hard, you know. All the people involved in Spiral Drive, they're all professional musicians, so they all make their living from music. And I don't want to be that dickhead who says, "Hey, man, you know, I have this great band project. You can join if you want. You know, it's cool, but you have to do the work." And yeah, I mean, you know, I really try to pay everyone for gigs and everything. And I don't know. It's
Does this go back to the start of our conversation when you were saying that when you put Spiral Drive together, when you first started writing this music, it wasn't for posturing, it wasn't for trying to be famous and recognized, it was because you had a love for a certain type of art and you wanted to create? Do you feel that it's that you just don't want to be perceived as being arrogant, that you don't want this band leader role? Because
yeah, I mean, I met some people who were like that, and I just always taught myself I don't want to be like that. Because I'm really sorry. I think my girlfriend is ringing the doorbell, and I thought my Tobias is going to open the door.
Go check it. Go check it.
So I'm just going to check it.
This guy's fucking awesome. Don't we agree?
Sorry, pardon me. Back again? Sorry.
No, there's no need to worry. I mean, there's a good chance if we speak too long, I'll need to go to the bathroom. So, you know, one step at a time. No, I think that's, and I asked that question because it's something that I've had to dance with for most of my life, is that I know how much I love radio. I love the art of radio and broadcasting. I love the art of creating music, but there is a difficult energy around that in this modern world that we're in, where anyone that has that self-confidence can very quickly be seen as being arrogant and an asshole, when there's nothing wrong with being confident in your ability. So I'm just trying to figure out, you know, are you just what you're showing us so far, a wonderful person who just doesn't want to be, oh, check out my fucking shit. And that's why I was attracted to your music in the first place. I mean, it's like you read that cheeky write-up I did last week in Legs when they made that artwork of me riding a spliff around the world listening to... right?
It's super great, by the way.
Listening to Illusion. And that's what I adore about you all, is that there's that energy in there where you're not trying to... It's like, if we're talking about Tame Impala, right, and the song Elephant.
Yeah.
Kevin wrote that song about a bully at school who would walk around and throw his trunk around like he was top dog and hot shit and get out my way, I'm the school bully. And so when I listen to Spiral Drive, I don't hear that kind of elephant energy. I hear some very intricate, passionate souls that have created this very textured soundscape that takes me on different journeys. And so it's so cool to learn now that you're saying, well, me and the same producer have done this from day one. It shows the evolution of your abilities, the evolution of the band and your songwriting. It shows. You know, the fact that, then you've got the artwork, then you've got the music videos. Everything you do is very particular and very, very interesting. So let's dive then. We're going to dive all around, but you brought up Mother's Cake. I first discovered Toxic. I mean, I cannot get enough of Mother's Cake. When I launched this radio station, it was, I think the 5th song I played was Toxic Brother. Cyberfunk is incredible. they seem absolutely fucking bonkers and mad in a wonderful way. Tell me about how you became friends, how you've joined this band. You just get cooler by the minute, man. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So when it was I think 2010 when I heard of them the first time. They founded in 2007. It was 2010. I was in Austria, in Tyrol. You know, it's like a state of Austria, Tyrol, with lots of mountains. And yeah, at some point I was really into psychedelic music, progressive rock music, Mars Volta, Chili Peppers, all that stuff. And somehow these guys came along and they were doing this gorgeous mix out of all these styles. I was like, fuck, they have the same influences like me, you know, but they already established a very distinctive and unique mix out of these influences. And I went to their shows. I got to know them because Tyrol is not big, you know, you have a chat after the show. And at some point, I moved to Germany. I studied music, and at some point I organized the first Mother's Cake live show in Mannheim. And I was opening with a band I had back then. And, you know, we are having jam sessions and everything. And we really got to know each other better and better. At some point, I opened some shows with another band I had from Mother's Cake. And at some point, Eve, the lead singer of Mother's Cake, founded a second band project called Blitzpop. They're also really great. And he asked me to record and produce it. So I did. And Manuel Renner was also part of the recording process. And he really liked the way we worked with them. So after that, he asked us if we could imagine producing the fourth Mother's Cake album. And of course, we were like, yeah, man, let's do it. We're totally down for it. And after that, they asked me to join as a fourth guy for live performances because I played a lot of, not all, but a lot of synthesizer parts, you know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, I basically co-shaped the album with Manuel. And yeah, it was a huge honor and pleasure that they asked me to play with them. And now we all already played a couple of shows. We played some tours. Spiral Drive is the opening act sometimes. And yeah, I love their music. I love to play with them. And also the audience is perfect target audience also for Spiral Drive. So it's like a family when we're on tour. And yeah, but recently they also took me with them for interviews and everything. So I was like, okay, so you're taking me, you know, you have always been a trio, and now you're taking me on interviews. So I don't know. I don't want to say it on my own, but sometimes it seems like I'm more than just a live musician joining. I mean, we're friends, so it's cool.
Yeah, well, I think that's a sign of respect towards the energy that you're bringing into the band. You know, they don't want you to be hidden behind the curtains. This is the guy that's joined us and what's brought your flavor to the album. It's so fucking good. I mean, it's
a real challenge also. Sorry.
No, you're saying it's a real challenge. So how is it a challenge to you then?
Yeah, because I was like, oh, I should play with you and I should play keys and synthesizer. I never did that before, you know. I'm a guitarist, and I also never considered myself to be a singer or anything. It's what I had to do because there was no one around to sing my songs. And so I really went into this. It's a multi-instrumental job, basically, because I'm playing percussions, I'm playing synthesizers, I'm playing the guitar, I'm singing, you know. And it's a multitasking madness. And I had to practice for that days and weeks and months. And I think the first gig we had was a live session in the studio, the Little Big Beat live session. It was my first gig with them, you know. I was of course like, what the fuck, you know, I'm playing fucking synthesizers live. Don't fuck up, you know, don't fuck up. Yeah.
That's so awesome, man. I want to dive right the way back to the start of the conversation as well now. I'm so intrigued as to why Space Pirates Session was released before Unity. If you recorded them all in different orders, what was your mind? What were you thinking behind the rollout and the release of them?
Oh, not too much, I guess, because
there's a year gap between the Space Pirates live session.
yeah,
There's a year gap between that and Unity, the debut album. Did you
yeah.
want people to get their first impression of you with that fluidity of live performance? But isn't Unity mostly off the floor as well?
Unity it probably is, because Unity wasn't intended to be an album. We just agreed on we should record this music. So we did. We recorded the songs, and then we were jamming in the studio and like improvising. That's also a big passion of mine, on also of Mother's Cake and of all the other guys in Spiral Drive, to play improvised music. You know, that's just some kind of magic with a jam session that really works. I also like to call it real-time composition, because if it really works and you have a chemistry and you have people that really are able to listen, then sometimes you're able to create something magical out of the moment. And I really love that. And so that's something I always want to do when I'm in the studio. Always plan one day where you only improvise. Yeah, and so we did that with Unity, and there was no plan behind that, you know. And then we did the live session. It was like, okay, it would be cool to launch this project with a video, you know, with the live session. And then afterwards, I thought, okay, how could I craft an album out of the stuff we recorded before? So it's the mix out of these songs and some improvised stuff. That's Unity.
That's fascinating. I remember you're the first person that I've spoken to in probably the last 5 or 6 years that has ticked the box of something that I always usually ask creators, which is when they're in the studio, there are two options. There are two routes you can go down. Number one is, I know, speaking for the band that I used to be in, there's the pressure of, we've got 3 days, don't fuck up. And we would do everything live off the floor. So we got to make sure we get the best takes we can in 3 days, don't mess it up. Then there's the other offshoot where maybe you've got more time to be more experimental and more fluid in the moment. Steve Bays is a friend of mine and producer over in Vancouver. He was in Hot Hot Heat way back when we were kids. He is someone that he's in a variety of bands. The guy is a colossal creator. But one thing that he's always done is he believes that when a band enters the studio and when everything is plugged in and set up, he hits record, and he does not stop recording, whether they're in the live room playing instruments or not. He captures everything for the whole 5 or 7 days that you're in the studio with him.
That would be perfect.
he builds from there. Maybe, okay, I want to focus on this and we're going to flesh this out and jam until 5 a.m. and see what we can get. Or maybe he'll come back afterwards and listen through it all and go, oh, you were coughing in the studio on Wednesday morning and it inspired this. And then he will go into all realms of creation. What are some examples on Unity where you're saying, right, we just jammed it out? What are some of your favorite songs on that record that were born out of that jam, that you didn't necessarily have a direction in mind, but one became in the moment?
So I did one noise jam with Andy, with the synth guy, and I don't know, it was probably 1 or 2 hours long. I don't know. We just did some noises and everything, and I just took the best parts in my consideration, and we did the interstellar noise kind of stuff. You know, when we had the vinyl, you have side A, side B, and side A starts with interstellar noise part 1 and side B starts with interstellar noise part 2. And this is the result of this noise jam with Andy. And we have I don't know, we had hours of material because we were just jamming. And I also took some highlights there from, and we made the track 420, which is just a snippet of a longer jam, and Haven. These 2 tracks.
Can I play some of these?
Yeah, sure. Yes,
right,
please.
I'm going to play little samples of the album opener, Interstellar Noise Part 1, that builds into this. So this is what eating mushrooms in a basement sounds like.
Maybe, yeah.
So Liz just said in the chat, so lovely to get to know Raphael and hear about the music and journey. Thank you. Raphael and John, my heart feels full when I'm able to connect with people around the world through music. Such cool music, says Liz.
Thanks a lot, Liz.
So
really appreciate it.
So are there vinyl copies still available?
There are vinyl copies still available, and I think you can order them through our label Stone Free Records.
Okay, because I would like to try and orchestrate a way where we can buy the first record and maybe the upcoming record and get some signed vinyl to gift to people in the community, if that's possible. That would be sweet.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I have some here too. So yeah, if I should sign them, or if we should sign them, I probably have to send them on my own. But that's no problem. We can do that.
Okay, sweet. Okay. All right. Let me play a little sample of Interstellar Noise Part 2. The first part got my cat up off the couch. We'll see if he joins.
By the way,
us.
I'm just trying to find the chat because I want to also read.
Oh, okay. It's when you go to twitch.tv/whatwasthatradio, just make sure you mute it once it comes up so we don't get double us, and then you'll see it there.
By the way, I'm just trying to unmute.
There you are. That was your alarming cousin that came through there. Interstellar Noise Part 2. We'll skip it a little bit here. This is 3 minutes, this one.
Yeah, it's a bit longer.
And what synthesizers were you using when you were making this?
Good question. I think we had a Dave Smith Mofo X4. We had a Korg Minilogue. And we have this Korg Volca. It's like this little shitty thing, but it's actually really awesome.
Okay.
And what else?
Are those the ones that you play? You see people with like a pencil, just
it's not that's the stylophone with the pencil.
Right. Pardon me.
Yeah, this is with the fingers, or you're just plugging something through MIDI. Yeah.
And now we're going to play a little sample of 420.
Yeah, man. 420 all the way.
It's a very unique record. It's very Spiral Drive, but it definitely goes for that psychedelica and that more rock, more straightforward rock. I mean, Space Pirates, I think, is a fantastic song as well. But I'll skip this into about a minute.
Yeah.
Why did you call it 420?
Probably because I was high as fuck.
There we go, just checking. I've gone on many a walk for a smoke listening to your records, my friend. You already know that. Yeah, so we're just vibing out here. We'll skip into another minute or so.
Yeah.
And this really is just a psychedelic jam, man.
Yeah.
Tell me about Space Pirates. Let me play a little sample of Space Pirates, because this is the first song on the album after the Interstellar Noise Part 1.
Yeah.
And this really is a galvanizing start to what then becomes a really chilled core. The center of this record is very lackadaisical, very almost walking, lying down, just tripping and adventuring around the world. But Space Pirates is a very pointed start compared to the rest of it. That wall of guitars. The major and minors playing with each other here and just creating that dissonance, that sort of unsurety of where we're going to go. And then when you come in, we get a feel for where we might be going. And it feels nerve-wracking, but it feels safe at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
People I know
this song takes me back to when my sister's just short of 8 years older than me. And growing up, it was very clear that she wanted to have a younger sister, but she got a younger brother. And one day we took a break from playing My Little Pony, and she pulled out a cassette player and went, I got to show you some music. And I was like, oh, okay. Because my dad, and you referenced the Beatles earlier, I would get a Beatles record each Christmas from my grandparents. It was like, this is what you're going to love. I remember getting Sergeant Pepper's, and we all went down. Grandpa was like, come up to my study and we'll put Sergeant Pepper's on. And when I was a kid, I was so amazed because my grandfather's office was upstairs, but he'd run all his speaker cable through and down into the living room, but then the speakers were hidden. So we'd go upstairs, plug this CD into his giant Technics, wall unit, the classic old units, and then go downstairs and bum, 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 ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. And I'm like, where the fuck is this coming from, Grandpa? That's before I was old enough to know what mushrooms and marijuana was. It was blowing my mind. And so with my dad, it was always Queen. It was Neil Diamond. It was the likes of ABBA. It was, Black Sabbath. It was Led Zeppelin. It was all the bands that you can imagine that you were referencing earlier. And to come back to my point with my sister, Space Pirates reminds me of when I used to sneak when she would go to school and grab a cassette player and grab some of my favorite cassettes of some English bands that just had driving rock and roll in the 90s back then, and just go to my room and just be like, this is so fucking cool. That's where it transports me back to one of those first moments where I wasn't being told necessarily, here's what you're going to listen to, where I chose to go and sneak and get what I wanted to listen to. And then that started, okay, I want to go down to HMV or Woolworths and start buying cassettes and buying CDs.
Oh, man.
Tell me about Space Pirates, because this is a song that, it's not that it stands out compared to the rest of the record, but there is textual difference in it. So where did it come from? Why is it here? And why did you choose to have it be the first one?
Yeah. So for me, it probably it started out with I don't know, I kind of felt grungy, a bit with the weirdness in the chords in the beginning, and just straight rock. And when I wrote these songs, I didn't think too much about that. And at some point, these pre-productions sounded really different from each other. And in the end, I had this gorgeous band, and we recorded all that. And when it was done, it all seemed to fit together. And that was the reason why I titled this album Unity. Because actually everything was so different from each other, but at some point everything ended up in unity. Yeah, and I don't know. Actually, it's a really pissed off song. It's about when you have people that surround you that, I don't know, that kind of don't help you to spread out your wings. They kind of are negative, and they try to hold you down. And at some point you realize it, and then you're like, you can just go fuck yourself, and I'm gonna do my own stuff.
Yeah, see you in a bit, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the feeling that for me, it felt, again, it's hard for me not to, I know I keep coming back to it, but it's just where you transport me to. I just always feel that I'm on the way to a planet far away. And
Cool,
the Space Pirates, what I clicked into with that is that bullies in space, just negative people in space. You're out there having a great time, discovering a new world, a new part of the universe, and there's someone going, be careful how you go about Saturn because you might get caught by the gaseous ring or whatever, like.
Yeah, totally. Always this pessimism, when you have like cool ideas, and then always people like telling you this won't work because of this and that. And at some point, there's a saying, I don't know how it's in English. In German, it's like, how is it? There was someone who said it won't work, and then someone came who didn't know that, and he just did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, we got to talk about
Visions in Bloom, man.
Well, no, hang on. Let's check in because we've been speaking for an hour, okay. So I want to make sure.
I know.
Have you got dinner already, or have you got another 20 minutes, or?
Yeah, it's all fine. So if I don't have a stress or anything.
Okay, because I could talk. We could go for 3 hours.
I just don't want to, burst the time.
Cool, we're on the same page. We'll keep going. So I want to touch on, to finish off with Unity, I want to touch on Infinity and I want to talk about the other side. I'll play a little bit of Infinity here. I'll play the first 15 seconds and then we'll skip to a chorus.
Yeah.
You're immediately hit by this warmth. And this is what runs throughout all of your creations, is that there's a lot of low end in there. And that fascinates me because with the low end, it can become very muddy. It can become very almost too adventurous in building those layers and that texture. But what you and your team do so well is that the bass and those low end synths and the guitar at some points, and then when you've got the kick and the snare in there as well, they never seem like they're fighting. It creates this really fluid warmth. Anyway, I'm going to skip forward about a minute in here. I love that line. All my resolutions fall into a coma.
Oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Did you check that with someone, or was that just boom?
No, that was just, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you need to check. I don't think you need to check anymore. No, that's what the things that I like about this song. The lyrical wordplay takes off, right? Space Pirates is great. It allows you to create your own journey and apply that a little bit to it. With Infinity, I'm not saying that you write one-liners, but you've got a lot of takeaways that make me smile, like that line in particular. And it's also the song for me where you seem the most aggressive vocally.
Yeah.
You're really pushing up there. So tell me, put some context around Infinity, because I think it's another great song.
When I was doing the pre-production, I mean, what Tame Impala really influenced me on was I didn't really like my voice before, and I was thinking, okay, if I use some distortion and delay and everything, maybe it's easier for me to accept my own voice. And I had this setup with distortion and everything, and I was singing to the mic, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool, and I was experimenting with my voice. And at some point the topic is actually addiction, addiction in the sense of you're just going in cycles all the time. You're stopping with your addiction, then you're starting again, and you're stopping and you're starting again, and it's this cycle of infinity. It doesn't stop. It makes you crazy, and there's this fucking anger and this fucking, so come on, get yourself together. Yeah. And that was really the moment I really felt this feeling, and I was just singing that, and it was this haunted by angers, haunted by sorrows, haunted by the fear of being haunted by tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really powerful song. Really powerful.
Thank you a lot.
So the album closer, The Other Side, this is 11 minutes and 15 seconds. Is this one of the jams then that you just left the whole way through, or was this originally like 3 days long and you selected the favorite 11 minutes of it?
No, I also started writing this repetitive riff, and I don't know, it was so funny because I had this song in mind, and it's so long and it has this riff all the time, and in the beginning it was just this riff, and everyone was like, what is that? What do you want with that song? And I was like, yeah, I have something in mind. It has to build up and everything. And yeah, in the end, also Manuel, in the end, he said, okay, now I know what you meant. Now I know what you meant. But during the recording process, everyone was like, okay, where is this going? Also in the studio when we were recording, I remember that we played it, we rehearsed it in 2017. We played it live once. And when we went to the studio to record Unity, we played that song, and it's so long, and it's one take, and even also for the drummer mostly is the first one who gives up after a certain amount, because it's so physical, and at some point you just cannot hold this tension all the time. So if I'm playing the guitar, I was like, okay, I have to play a good take now, because the drummer won't play great takes, won't play 20 great takes. So, and actually when we recorded the song, it got worse and worse. So we actually had to take the first take.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, let's play some samples of it.
It takes just so long, everything.
It's so great, though. It's not a quick journey to get to the other side, mate. Sorry, cheesy.
True, though.
Do you know All Them Witches?
I love them.
Yeah. That'd be pretty sweet to have you on a bill with All Them Witches.
I have a surprise in that regard.
Okay, well, let me skip forward a little bit more in this song. This is what I love about having these types of conversations, is when I meet someone as passionate as you, and I don't really prepare much for these chats. I allow them to create themselves and direct themselves in the moment. And from your first opening monologue, I had 15 questions, and we're just working through it. We haven't got there yet. So,
Oh man.
what was that film that Matthew McConaughey was in, where he was in space and went into a black, what was it? It was in a black hole or something, and he tried to come through, and he's trying to give signals to his daughter.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So, I don't know, man. Interstellar? No.
I don't know. Is it Interstellar? It could be that. Anyway, this song reminds me of that right now. I could just picture McConaughey like poking through a bookshelf, come to the other side. Anyway, sorry, we'll go back to this. Right, that's about a 2-minute 40 mark. We'll skip to 5:30. But I mean, as we skip through this, it's obviously going to be familiar, because it's a brooding, slow building. It's a song where really you need to find yourself in a comfortable spot, whether you're into smoking marijuana or not. You do you. Get a cup of tea. Get comfy, sit down, get some good headphones, and just let it take you on a ride. Just try and consume
take your time
with that. But let's just jump into the little bridge and solo section. This is where I'm picturing you with your Slash hat on and a cigarette hanging out your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm playing solos, that influence comes definitely.
Yeah, Zoom saying in the chat, this song sounds epic. It certainly is.
Thanks, man.
So good. And that's only the first album. You know, we've not even spoken about the fact that there's Inner Truth is brilliant. Screwed, obviously, we've touched on with your friends. Space Train, Illusion. Man, you're putting together a hell of a stable of songs here. And so I know you've been itching to start talking about the next steps, the new album. So, Raphael, lay it on us. What do you want to share? You're so excited the 2 or 3 times you tried to get to it.
So it was really interesting that you mentioned All Them Witches, because obviously All Them Witches also had their fair share on impacting me. Other Side was definitely also influenced by All Them Witches. And in the solo section, I really tried to do some Jimi Hendrix reversed guitar stuff and everything. And also, actually, the story behind it is also really interesting, because it's probably, I don't know, do you know the story about Syd Barrett and Pink Floyd?
Remind us all, for those that might not know.
Okay, so Syd Barrett got mentally sick from all this, from acid abuse, and yeah, he went sick on a psychosis actually, and I had a similar experience with one of my best friends actually. So this song is the story about that. So that I kind of lost a friend to or his mind due to psychedelics and marijuana and all this abuse of these substances. It's actually a really dark topic. I just wanted to mention it because it means a lot to me, this song. And yeah, this is the expression of this story, of this is experienced with that guy. So yeah. And back to All Them Witches. I asked Ben McLeod, the guitarist of All Them Witches, to play on a song, and he is a guest musician on Visions in Bloom.
No
we didn't
way.
Yeah, man. There's a song called Ego Placebo, and he plays a lot of guitar parts on that song. So it will be released on Visions in Bloom.
Amazing. Before we go too further away from that, thank you for sharing the context and about your friend. I think that's very important. If you want to let that sit, we don't need to jump into anything else. But that's very important. And that is the energy that I feel. And my key word here that I say in almost every conversation I have is it's the authenticity that shines through. It is your soul that shines through in these creations. And particularly with Spiral Drive, because it's got that jammed element. It's got that unity, right? That you chose to name the album with in the first place. And so thank you for sharing that. That's very important context.
You're welcome.
So
thank you.
When it came to reaching out to All Them Witches, did you just Instagram them like I did you? How did you go about that?
Nah, when COVID hit, and I was collecting songs for Visions in Bloom and everything, or maybe we already recorded it. I don't know. It was before recording. I don't remember anymore. But at some point, I saw that Ben, the guitarist, gives guitar lessons, and I was thinking, okay, wow, COVID also hit them, so he has to give guitar lessons now. And I was thinking, okay, I'll probably take a guitar lesson, talk about some stuff with him about songs, and then ask him if he would like to play on a tune of mine. And I sent him. We were talking about music production, and I sent him a link of Toxic Brother because he was interested, and I sent him the link, and he checked it out. And at some point, I think he figured out that I was serious, that I'm not. Yeah. And then I asked him if he would be down to play on a song at some point, and I will send it to him. And he was really cool and down to earth and was like, yeah, man, send it over. And months later, I was like, hey, yo, here's the song, by the way. You want to check it out? Would be cool if you would play some guitar parts for it. And then he was like, yeah, man, let's shred. And yeah, it was pretty uncomplicated.
That's a very crafty way of going about doing it. I'll just book a guitar lesson, even though, I mean, you can, growth is never ending, right? I'm not saying that you don't need to get guitar lessons. I'm just saying.
I mean, it was really interesting also. There was some tunes, I was like, hey man, it's a really nice tune. I really love that tune. And what's your technique behind that?
Yeah,
and sometimes when I take my guitar, I also play that, because it's something that I just go to sometimes and practice it. It's nice.
So will the singles, the likes of Inner Truth and Screwed, Illusion, Hyperflow, are they all going to appear on the album, or they're just standalone singles and this is a whole new wealth of music?
So all songs will be released through Visions in Bloom, except for Hyperflow and except for Playing Dead. Okay. These songs won't be on the album. Yeah, and they are recorded in the rehearsal room, and all the other songs were recorded in the studio.
And are they live off the floor mostly, or this one's how did you approach this?
What do you mean, this?
So when you made previous records, there would be a focus on jamming. So there's quite a lot of it that's been recorded live off the floor, all of you at the same time. You were saying the very early songs, when it's just you're orchestrating everything and composing everything. So now we step forward into 2022. Is this, okay, one musician at a time, or are you all still in there trying to galvanize that group unity energy, or how did you approach it?
It's all recorded live. The only thing we did differently is that there are, in fact, a couple of songs, maybe 2 or 3 that we recorded also live, but with a click track because it just suited the song better. Yeah.
Okay, marvelous.
Because back then I was always like, I don't want to use click track, but at some point, if you use like all the sequencer stuff and arpeggiated sounds, and if something really has to be, sometimes it actually makes sense to use a click track, even if it kind of sucks, but then again, not,
It's a real trip getting used to that. I remember when I first went into the studio to record drums, and the first few times I did it when I was young, it was just, we didn't bother click track. It was just live off the floor. But then when we were capturing live off the floor, we still had a click, just because we had some very defined changes between the last verse and bridge into solo. It was, it would drop 20 BPM, speed up 30, drop back 15, and then sit back into the middle ground of where it would end. And so just to sort of act as a guide, it would be very quietly through the headphones. But when I would practice about it, I'd get my electric drum kit and just sit down and just take some of the stems that I need, and I would spend hours every fucking night after work just trying to get a flow, because it wants you to be robotic. The key is trying to find how you keep that fluidity and keep that yourself energy through it, but you need to dance with it. It's such a fascinating dance. Some can do it so well. I still find it very, very difficult. I feel that it does impact the emotion I'm putting through the drums at the time. So I mean,
there's also some false idealism. It was back years back, I had this, I don't know, idealism, so nothing has to be, I don't want to record anything with click track. But at some point I realized, okay, sometimes it just supports the song, and that's more important than the idealism.
Yeah, exactly. So which one to talk about first? Maybe this wonderful, this just drives, man. So good, Illusion. Skipping a little bit. I love that little dance.
It could actually change the rhythm on it.
Exactly, yeah. It could have 4 different rhythms throughout that song. So who are you asking where the fuck they went to?
Actually, ex-girlfriend.
Oh, there we go.
Where the fuck have you gone? When you just when you meet up again, and at some point it seems like the person is someone else, or there's nothing you remember of, and someone is standing in front of you, but you're not there. Yeah.
So we are constantly growing and shifting and changing. I know that I would probably have a lot of people say that to me, because I moved to Canada for many, many reasons. That's why I really appreciate that you shared the context behind at the end of Unity.
I appreciate you asking, man.
And the other side, when I was a young man, and this is not, I'm not going to go into immense detail, but I was abused by strangers when I was a kid, but I never knew who they were. And so when I listen to songs like Illusion, that speaks to me as well, in the sense of I spent a vast majority of my teenage years trying to figure out who I was, long story short. Many of the people watching and listening right now, because I've spoken about this openly for years, they've heard this before, but you, Raphael, necessarily haven't. Well, I know you haven't. And so, when you're talking earlier about, okay, I went through my Beatles, I went through my Blink-182, my Mars Volta, my Muse, my Radiohead, etc. Well, me too. Like many, many children will, when they go through and discover anything that intrigues them, they'll dive in and around that to find more context and more adventure. But for me, I was going through very particular changes in emotion, very particular changes in dress and outlook and appearance, and just trying to find what that was. My parents, in the playroom when I was growing up, we had more costumes than we had Lego or cars. And so my brother, sister, and I would spend years always just changing through all these hand-me-down costumes, from great-grandparents to grandparents, and all these different generations of it. And I would strut around the house every day, different characters. I would watch Jim Carrey or Robin Williams doing impersonations or or voice character work on TV, and I would copy them.
Yeah.
And so when I listen to a song like Illusion, I almost feel like I'm asking myself, where the fuck did you go? Because I've gone through, much like your iPhone gets updated and gets repatched, I've gone through John version 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, up to 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's the beauty of life. That's the complexity of life. But as long as you're working towards a positive finish to each of those chapters, to then acknowledge the growth and keep going. But yeah, that's what that song sparks in me. When I listen to
interesting. When I listen, super interesting.
Well, when I listen to music, Raphael, that's what I do. If it speaks to me here first, I'll listen to the songs over and over and over again, and I'll make sure that I'm listening to them when I'm happy or when I'm sad, when I'm tired, when I'm hungry. I want to see how all of my energy speaks to a song. And so that's why, Illusion was a song of the week a few weeks ago, because as soon as I heard it, after I listened to it the fourth or fifth time and really clued into where you were going lyrically, I was like, man, this is giving me some flashbacks, and this is without smoking a fucking joint before I go to bed.
Yeah, that's important.
So, yeah, and then, the latest single as well, Within a Truth, little sample of this. This certainly showcases your love of a guy called Kevin, but that's okay, because it's still you. And I bring these up back to back because it feels like you've gone from Illusion and said, where have you gone? Who are you? And then it feels like Within a Truth, you've come back round your own thinking of this instance maybe, and you're like, hang on a second, let me just recall what that was, because there was love there. There was love way back when, but I'm confused. Did these two songs get written around the same time? Are they cousins of each other, or are they separate entities and I'm completely off base?
They're completely... Because Inner Truth is actually, I mentioned Andy Haslacher before, the synth guy that became father on the told us during the tour, and he wasn't part of Spiral Drive anymore. But when we were planning on recording Visions in Bloom, I asked him to come to. We got support funds from the German government, so we had the financial resources to record that album, actually, because otherwise that wouldn't have worked out. In the sense we did it, and I asked Andy to join because there were so many songs and parts that I could only imagine playing with him. So I managed to get him for recording. And in 2015, I was making music with him for years, and I got to know him while studying. And 2015, he had this song called Inner Truth, because that's actually a song that came from him. And he's also singing the lead vocals on that one. And it was a time when, you probably don't know it, but there's the Ozora Festival in Hungary. It's like a psychedelic gathering, probably like Burning Man, just in Europe, something like that. And we were there, and it's about a girl that he really, really admired. And it didn't work out also.
Right.
And the song was Inner Truth, and I always loved that song. I really always loved that song. We also had a session, someone with other people, and tried to play this song and made a different version. But at some point I was like, man, I love that song. I don't want the song to rotten on a hard drive somewhere. I just don't want to. And would it be okay for you if we record that song, and please you sing it? But I would love, because it really is something that I have a connection. I have a connection with Andy, and I have a connection with that song. And we were already working on that song a couple of times. So I'm really lucky that he shares the song with me now, and we recorded it together. And he played the synths, and he sang the lead vocals, and I finished it with him together. So, but it's mostly from him, definitely.
Amazing. Thank you for that context. Your two voices they work with each other very, very well then. I I knew that he was singing parts of the song from the live performance that you had shared on Instagram months ago. But I didn't realize to that depth. So I appreciate the share.
Yeah. So I just sing the backing vocals and the la 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 in the end, and just some subtle guitar parts, and that's it, because it just worked so well on its own, and that's the sound of the band. Sometimes I feel like this band is just amazing. So really, props go out to the whole band, and also to Andy for that song. Really, so without them, it wouldn't be like that.
Amazing, right? So, on the home stretch of our conversation here, I really appreciate your time, Raphael. What is the plan for the rollout of the record? What's coming our way? What can you hint at, and what can you share?
So what Visions in Bloom is we definitely have some songs that we worked on together more. So like Heatwave is a song I wrote with David together. Illusion is something that I worked on with David and Nicolas, the drummer, more. It's not just me. I really enjoy that it's not just me on a lot of songs. And we have some guest musicians like Eve from Mother's Cake. He is obviously unscrewed, but he is also playing the second guitar on the opener of the song. We have Ben McLeod from All Them Witches on a song called Ego Placebo. And we have another guest called Lord Fascinator.
Right.
Super crazy guy. I found him through Instagram because I'm a huge fan of the Spinning Top label from Australia. You might know it. It's the label of Tame Impala, actually, and Pond and Gum and everything.
Yeah.
And at some point, they announced an album from a guy called Fascinator, Lord Fascinator. And I looked at this album called Water Sign. Water Sign is the album called, Lord Fascinator. And I was thinking, what the fuck, this guy? I don't know, the way he looks. And I listened to that album and I immediately ordered it on vinyl. And it's I don't know, electronic, avant-garde, psychedelic, but with a it's really funny actually, and he writes crazy lyrics.
What's the song called again?
The song you mean from Visions in Bloom?
No, from Lord Fascinator.
His album is called the last album he released is called Water Sign. And I can recommend the song Sex Crystals. I don't know. It has to be a crazy guy. He played in a band in Australia called Children Collide. An awesome band. They also released a great album last year. I love them. Surfy, garage, psych, indie rock. And it just has to be a cool guy. I really hope I am going to be able to meet him one day, or he's going to be able to visit Germany at some point. Inspiring guy for me, cool guy. I asked him to do a feature. He loved the song and he did a feature.
Yeah, this man looks incredibly quirky. What long, luscious blonde hair and a sharp aesthetic he's got with the all white and those big old retro shades, Avatar sort of style.
Such a cool guy.
Yeah, the artwork looks, it looks like you two would get along. Very psychedelic artwork here. Sweet. And when is it out again? End of February, isn't it?
I think it should be 11th of March. It's not 100% sure because of COVID and the vinyl stuff and everything, but it should be 11th of March. Probably shouldn't have said that from the label, but yeah, it has to be released on 11th of March. Otherwise, I'll go crazy.
Okay. Well, I mean, the beautiful thing about this, Raphael, is that it's live in this moment, but it doesn't get released. Every conversation I do live is then released about 15 weeks later for the podcast and for the YouTube channel. So by the time this is released, it's fucking out there in theory.
So it probably will be March. So
so we should be all right. It's actually this will be out in about 17 weeks from now.
So we have some guest musicians. There's more. We worked on a lot of songs more together, which I really enjoyed, and. I really did my best to evolve as a songwriter with the English language. Also, it's always a task to not, I don't know, the pronunciation. When you sing the songs, you can sing it as a German. Yeah, see, 1, 2, 3, I love you. And something I really don't like. So I'm really try to work hard on this.
Yeah, and it shows.
I think Visions in Bloom is the greatest thing we've ever created, and Yeah, and the thing is, we don't have a booking agency at the moment. I'm trying to get a booking agency at the moment. No one is signing new bands. I'm in Germany. Germany is so focused on German pop music, German Schlager, hip hop, obviously, and it's really hard. I have a lot of people from the university I studied at around from the music business, and people always seem to be interested, and they like all the stuff, psychedelic porn crumpets or Tame Impala and everything. But if I don't know, if I talk to them, it's always like, yeah, psychedelic, yeah, that's a niche. Yeah, yeah, I couldn't do that. I don't know anyone for that. It's always seems like I'm at the wrong place. But in the end, it's hard everywhere. I know that.
But this is what's interesting. I've spoken to multiple bands. Do you know the Tasers out of South Africa?
No.
I'm going to link you the Tasers after this chat.
Please.
I think you'd really like them. And I know that they're looking to try and do European touring. And I think that they'd be a really great fit for you guys. So I'll link you that afterwards. But I've spoken with 4 or 5 bands recently it blows my mind that they're bands that in their own town, in their own country, they're facing those systems that are like blocking them. No, well, we're not really into this, not really us. But then yet on the other side of the world, they're unbelievable. It blows my mind that they can talk about. It's that international. It's like when I first got a job on a Canadian radio station as an English guy, and there was that sort of international flair, right? That sort of mystery around, oh my God, what's this accent doing here? What's this different? Yeah. He's got such a different worldly experience. What's he doing here? And I feel that's kind of the same with what these people are. They're looking at psychedelic porn crumpets, who are fucking incredible, by the way. Yeah. And Tame Impala to go, oh yeah, that's great. But we don't really have that going on here, even though you're stood right in front of them, just as talented, just as skilled, just as a great composer. And it's almost, and what a band said to me recently was, well, we feel like we need to go, maybe we need to get that exposure in a different country to then it helps us to get more recognition in our own back garden. But it sucks that has to exist. Can you describe a bit then? Because I know with the Tasers, the reason why that came to mind was when you said that in Germany, they've got very particular musical genres that the main focus is on. Well, the Tasers in Johannesburg, rock and roll in Johannesburg, there's barely any of it. It's underground. It literally is underground. And they are working their backsides off to build community, to build, fans, to get noticed, to try and then do these shows to get money to try and go to Germany or Austria or Holland, where they've heard great things about live performances and how they support music. But you're in Germany right now as a psychedelic rock and roller. What is that landscape like for you?
I mean, Germany has a tradition of that. I mean, krautrock, man, all that stuff, Guru Gru. It's like great bands from the 70s from Germany who did psychedelic music, who were like pioneers. Kraftwerk, for example, also. And but that's so long ago, and I really try to, I don't know, if I think about the landscape in these German speaking countries like Switzerland, Austria, and Germany, I think, okay, there's Mother's Cake, then there's Cadaver from Berlin, I think. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, I play them.
Yeah, and and then there are also some bands, Susanne Köcher, Supraphon, how are they called? They're also great, actually. I don't remember the name right now. But there are a couple of bands, and I really don't want to be in this, but there are also some bands that are more in this retro kind of stuff, and that's really something I really try to avoid, this retro stoner field, because I think what I try to mix is this certain grungy vibe with neo psychedelia, but still, I don't know, this in between of being heavy and neo psychedelic and kind of catchy and hooky, and reaching listeners and trying to get them to these psychedelic landscapes without getting, whoa, that's too weird. Yeah.
It's hard to explain. Who's one of the biggest rock bands in Germany right now?
Biggest rock bands in Germany, Rammstein.
Well, yeah, but like in like a current class of the 2020s, who Rammstein are colossal. But I mean,
sometimes I had this discussion with Mother's Cake sometimes too when we were on tour. It's really hard. Big rock bands, like internationally, right?
well, not even internationally, just that would sell out arenas in Germany, you know,
Rock
when they're
bands.
headlining big rock festivals and they turn to a German band. Who's it going to be beyond Rammstein?
We had the problem when we were discussing that really big bands are mostly bands that are older, not from these days. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating and difficult about the whole thing. Is that
rock is having a hard time in general at the moment.
Yeah, but you see, then again, it is, but it also isn't, because there's millions of people like you that are producing some incredible art that we've not been able to discover yet. Some we have, like Mother's Cake. You've become friends with them. Fuck, you're in the band now. But some we haven't discovered yet. But it's the systems at play. That's what fascinates me. Like when I worked in modern rock radio, when I first heard that station 13 years ago, I heard Tool, followed by Daft Punk, followed by Cage Elephant, then Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Blink-182. There was a very clear energy about it where the alternative would really hit you with that Daft Punk harder, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
Where modern rock radio has progressed to now is that it's more of a open sphere of, if it's a great song, they call it a crossover hit. So if Adele releases a song that might be a bit more rocky, they might try it out because they want to try and bring in top 40 and pop culture listeners. And that's where the lines have become a bit too blurred, in that your average Joe, your average music consumer driving around in the car, flicking through radio stations, this is throwing quite a vast net. They don't want to turn on fucking metal. They don't want to turn on something that's screaming at them and going crazy. But this is where the rock stations in Canada, I'll only speak to what I know, mainstream rock stations in Canada, I feel have become afraid of distortion. When I first played Royal Blood to my bosses several years ago, and I think we were the first, it doesn't matter about we were the first station, but we technically were in Canada to play them. I was told that's metal. When Out of the Black came out, I was told that's metal because it was jarring. And it's easy for people to say, oh, if it's jarring and aggressive and distorted and the drums are booming, it's metal. Oh, fuck, I can't. It's not. That's modern rock. That's what this station is all about. And because they became so big, you can't ignore them then.
No.
So if you're Spiral Drive and you go to Australia and you open up shows with Psychedelic Porn Crumpets and Tame Impala and you come back, oh my God! Right? Yeah.
That's always the thing. It's the prophet from the own land doesn't count in the own land or something like that. There's also a German saying like that. I think it's even worse in Austria. You know, people are like, so yeah, whatever, you know. And then if they say, okay, different countries and internationally, okay, maybe it's not that bad. And it's always the thing, you know. It's like, especially if you do like international music, rock music, people want to see that people in the international sense worship the art before they do it on their own.
Yeah, that is the number one thing that does my head in, that really confuses me about humans, is that we're so at times self-centered that we can't even congratulate our neighbor. You know, we can't. Why wouldn't you want to lift up and celebrate something? You know, until Bayern Munich win the cup, right? I mean, Bayern Munich win the cup every fucking year. Let's be frank, right? It's always one. But until that, what was the other team in Munich that came up for the first time in 70 or 80 years, 2 seasons ago? And got to the Bundesliga after all these years down, and the passion of their fans being like, we've always believed in this, we've got here. It's just what fascinates me about humans is that we choose our handful of things that we're going to really get behind, and then everything else, even no matter how cool or good it is, we don't want to let them know that they're that good because we feel fearful of what it means we are, when if you're not a musician, you're allowed to say how world-class and great that band is. I don't know, it really irritates me that I speak to so many bands across the last 15, 20 years that are, because then what you got to think about is how many bands are spending money that they're never gonna. They're gonna spend their whole life trying to get that money back to go and do. If you're in Berlin and you're like, right, okay, this landscape doesn't quite want to accept me. I'm gonna go and tour in the UK. I'm gonna go to Australia, build my name, come back, and now I'm 50,000 euros in debt, and all of a sudden now it's cool, and it just seems odd, you know. I don't know. I just feel like I'm ranting and going around in circles. I just get so frustrated by it. Celebrate your neighbors.
Also, like I got the news, read the news that Coachella released a new lineup, and it's the first time they almost don't have any band. So that's also a progression that's happening. You know, that's always more centered towards solo artists. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope one day that in 4 or 5 years from now, What Was That gets to the point where I can say, Raphael, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to speak to your friends in Mother's Cake. I need you to speak to your friends in All Them Witches, and I want you to come and play a festival, the What Was That festival. That's what I want to build towards.
Oh, that'd be great, man.
You know,
I mean, it's also something that would be so great, but it's so complicated. You know, if you're doing like a band on your own, like me, for example, you know, it's all do it yourself. I do the management, I do the booking. I'm trying to get a booking agency, but all booking agencies are like, hey, that's cool, but we cannot sign any new bands. We have signing stop because of COVID and everything. Yeah. And, you know, time goes by, and now it's already too late to book festivals for summer, you know, and so on and so on. And how should a band like us manage to plan a tour overseas in Canada, USA? I mean, England is also more difficult right now thanks to Brexit.
Fucking stupid that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Really stupid.
But we're not giving up, and we're trying to stay optimistic. And
yeah, no, please don't give up. Yeah.
Nah, man. It's all about the music in the end.
We won't dive too deep into this, but there's a reason why, and I've said this multiple times throughout my career, there is a reason why England is looked upon as being just this unbelievable creative realm. And that is because England has always allowed... It's always been so multicultural. It has opened its gates, and it's allowed...
So many great bands from England. Fuck.
But they've allowed all these energies from around the world to come in, and they've inspired and in turn created new offshoots of genres, new directive for music. And now it's time, because half the population has decided that they're scared of celebrating anything beyond themselves. They don't even want to celebrate their next door neighbor. It's time to close the fucking door and say, yeah, whatever. And it's going to... That's partly why I left England all those years ago, is that there is an energy throughout the public there that not many would share with you, where they don't really want anyone to fucking succeed. They just want to take care of number one, take care of themselves, and that's fine. Yeah. But the art and culture is so huge, and when you shut the gates, you are closing down. And then for bands like you, when you want to go into England now, you're going to have to fork out an extra 300 euros just to get the license to go in there and do it. And that's only going to be for a few weeks. You want to go and do a month, you've got to find 1,000 euros. Right? Then if you want to come to Canada, you've got to find $350 to come into Canada and perform on a working visa. You want to go to the US, you're going to need $650 per band member to get a visa for 2 weeks to perform music. And all these, this is what upsets me so much and about the systems at place in and around the arts. Is that what's great about what you've applied for? You've got grants to go and make these great videos, record the record, etc. And you've utilized every single euro brilliantly. But there are bands that don't get any of that opportunity whatsoever. Yeah, they never get close to it. What are they meant to do? How are they meant to grow? Where are they meant to go? It's bullshit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's harsh. And but it's always...
It's a love affair.
You really have to take care that you not get bitter about it. That's also the art about it. Yeah.
That is the hardest thing, and I got a bit ranty and passionate there. So thanks for listening to my 10-minute verbal diarrhea.
No worries. I totally can relate to that. So I feel you, man.
This is the biggest challenge for me as well. Is I'm building What Was That, and I've had years of experience, and the biggest growth I've gone through is my ego, because when I left the station, I left a very successful DJ, and I did hope that a certain amount of that would follow me to a very different venture.
Yeah.
You can't put what was that in your car. You got to connect your phone or whatever, and you've got to have a modern car with a modern dashboard, etc. You need to choose to come and find me, like the wonderful 12 people watching right now. You've got to click, clack, and follow through to where you choose to go to consume what I do. And I know the passion I've got. I know the product I'm building. And that's the biggest challenge I've had, is knowing that with every band or person that I speak to, like yourself, as we grow this community of connection and that passion, that net that's thrown around becomes bigger.
Yeah.
It's wanting more people like you and your friends to know of what was that, to know that there's a passionate guy there, all these musicians that are sharing their souls.
Such a pleasure to meet you and your show, and it's really cool. And I would tell my bandmates, it was really cool with John, and
thanks,
we have to join next time. Hopefully he invites us again, so you have to get the chance.
I will, but this is, it's like, with Spiral Drive and with What Was That, we know how much we love our art and craft. We know how much we obviously want people to consume it as well, because we feel it's going to bring positive impact. But that's the biggest challenge, is being patient. Because your artwork is going to continue to connect with people organically through people's word of mouth, through other people like me that are doing podcasts and radio stations and blogs. And I hope that it gradually builds to giving you that base where then it becomes your only thing, where you can live off your music. But that is the love affair that is so difficult about this journey.
Yeah.
Self-confidence, self-patience.
Totally. And also, the older you get, I'm also doing music production and all that stuff, and working as a live musician and everything. And at some point I realized it's so much work with Spiral Drive, to do the management, to do the booking. And at some point, I'm happy that it's somehow it grows, and at some point I notice, okay, it reaches more and more people slowly. But at some point I cannot do this effort. I cannot sit on the computer doing booking for Spiral Drive every day, and at some point I have to earn my money somewhere else, and sometimes when we play live, of course we get some money, but I use this money to pay all the people involved, and I'm the last person who takes something for my own. So yeah, it's really hard, and some point I just hope that we'll get to the point where there'll be people who know what they're doing in booking or management or something. It's what every band dreams of, like having a team around them, so they can focus more and more on what it's about. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Anyone that's watching right now that's willing to move to Germany and run run that side of it. Yeah, for me, it's like when I'm looking at trying to tweak the website or doing video work, and I'm like, but my true passion lives in just talking a lot, listening, talking a lot, listening. Yeah.
You're a great conversation partner.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, that is the coolest fucking way anyone's ever described a conversation partner. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
No one's ever said that. I like that. We're going to rebrand the radio station to What the Fuck Was That, and we're going to call this a conversation partner with Spiral Drive. We're going to rebrand the whole thing. Amazing. Well, Raphael, thank you so much. I'm going to dive in to some I would have played a Fascinator sample earlier, but I didn't want to distract from you. But I'm going to dive into that afterwards.
Fascinator.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for your time.
We'll take this conversation to back to Instagram or email. I want to orchestrate buying a bunch of merch and vinyl from you.
Sure, man.
To give away to those in the community.
We'll organize that.
Yeah, that's huge. So, yeah. What are you going to do the rest of the night now?
Good question. I think I'm going to help my girlfriend, who's also a great singer and producer, with application for a support fund, also from German government. She's also working hard on her art, and yeah, it's mostly getting up, working, going to sleep.
There we go.
Yeah.
Is she a solo performer or in a band? What, can we look up her music, or is that private in this moment?
She's about to release this up. Her project is called Fea. She's half American, half German. and it's very it's melancholic electronic indie pop.
Okay.
And she produces everything on her own, and it's about it's hard to describe now in English for me.
That's all right. Just link me some things on Instagram and we'll throw it into the
Yeah,
Wuzzer community.
I'll link you some stuff. I'll link you some stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks for your time. Thanks to everyone who was listening and watching the stream also.
Yeah, and I appreciate how much you advertised that on Instagram. I loved the quirky video filters you used, and you were like, not really sure if any of you fucking know what Twitch is, but come and watch us. I fucking laughed at that last night. That was great.
All right, mate.
Yes, thank you so much, Raphael. Send my love to the rest of the band. I cannot wait for the new record. And send me everything that we've spoken about in terms of music. I'll send you everything later on as well.
Cool, man.
And I really appreciate it, man.
Have a great night, and much love from Mannheim, Germany.
Awesome. Thank you, Raphael.
Bye-bye. See ya.
Boy, see you, mate. What a wonderful flipping soul Raphael is. Already knew. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm correcting myself in my mind saying like, I already know. Well, I already knew, both apply, that he is an incredibly talented soul. Even more so having now spoken with him. Just a really cool dude. I cannot wait to see what else Spiral Drive create and to continue our friendship. Selfishly and quite frankly. Whatever you do in the rest of your day, and as always, please look after yourself and hope there's some fun and smiles involved in the rest of it too, because we've got to cherish that positive. For now, thanks for being here. Until next time, cheerio.